Okay, this is another example of using PyCork. So this one, the one that I have used when I did my systematic review way back in 2011. The title of the SLR is Empirical Studies of Pair Programming for Computer Science Software Engineering Teaching in Higher Education, a systematic literature review. So in that SLR, the focus was on looking at all studies on pair programming. Okay, so at that point of time, I was a bit clueless in terms of how do I set up the direction. Okay, how do I set up the framework for the SLR? So with this PyCork, yeah, it tells us, yeah, the framework for the review for the SLR. So for instance, for this topic, the population is specifically in higher education, and the focus is looking at the computer science and software engineering, yeah, students. So I was actually at that time looking at pair programming studies that have been conducted mostly in the West, in US mostly at that time. Okay, this was 10 years ago. And then the focus or the intervention, specifically I was looking at this practice, a pair programming practice. This is one of the practices that have been used in industry as well as in academia. Okay, for those who use agile or extreme programming, this is one of the technique that people use in writing codes, right? So there are two people writing codes. One is driver and one is navigator. So that particular practice is what we call as pair programming. So I was wondering whether this pair programming is really good or not. And because there are a number of studies, okay, at that time, so it would be worthwhile to study how effective is this practice. Okay, I was looking at how is it effective. Okay, and how do we form a good pair, right? Because if we were to pair students, right, how do we know that the pair formation is effective enough for the students to really gain benefits from that practice? So at that point of time, there are a lot of studies about pair programming, and when we read the findings, some of the studies says it's good. It's very effective. It's helpful for the students. It increases their confidence, and it helps them. It gives them more satisfaction. It helps them in writing higher quality of software. So there are lots of findings. So I was thinking that it will be something beneficial if I can conduct a review, yeah, to study all those findings from pair programming studies. So I don't specifically wanted to compare with anything, so just I make it in A not applicable. All right, because the focus is not to compare with solo programming or whatever methods at that time. So the outcomes of concern is only on the pair programming's effectiveness. Okay, I was interested in studying this particular thing. So the context is only in education, because there are a lot of studies as well in industry. But if we were to conduct all of those studies, it will be mixed off, So when we wanted to evaluate the study findings, that would be very challenging, and that can be confusing as well, because of the mixing of the participants from industry and academic. So that's why in a systematic review, SLR is aimed to having a focused review rather than having a generic one. Okay, so here the focus is only specifically on the context of higher education and in computer science software engineering domain. So having those PyCork in mind, okay, I set up these particular questions. There is one major question that I put forward. Specifically, I would like to know what studies are talking about pair programming, okay, in higher education settings that have investigated effectiveness of that practice, pair programming's effectiveness, and that have also looking at the pair compatibility. Okay, these are the main thing. And I've also interested in few other things related to that. For example, what evidence is there regarding pair compatibility factors, okay, that affect the effectiveness of pair programming? So what are the factors affecting the compatibility? Right? How the effectiveness of pair programming is measured? How effective it has been used? And how was quality measured in the studies that use software quality as a measure of pair programming's effectiveness? So when actually the first time when we were to conduct a systematic literature review, there is no way to come up with a perfect questions. So it always involves certain iteration, okay, until we come to a solid question. So it shouldn't take months to actually derive a question, but at least we have one starting point, and that question will always can always be refined because we are still under the same topic area of investigation, right? So it's the matter of refinement. So one of the important tips here is to just come up with one initial research question, right? That of our interest, and don't spend so much time to come up with a perfect question, because we can never arrive to that in one single day or in one night. It takes time, but the question will be, of course, will be refined as we move on, as we read a lot along the study areas. So then we can develop a review protocol. So review protocol normally in the beginning of the SRR stage, it is a document. Okay, it is a document. It is a live document. It is not a static document. It should be a live document, right? Because we will keep on updating the content while we are progressing the SLR phases. Okay, right from the beginning, maybe we can write some background about the study, some preliminary question. We may have some ideas in terms of where we wanted to search, right? What kind of criteria that we are going to put forward in terms of selecting the studies, what sort of procedures for us to use in performing the selection, and quality checklists. Okay, bear in mind, when we started this SRR, of course we do not have I would say the whole idea about how this whole thing will looks like. Okay, it's okay, right? It's okay, but this protocol does not mean that you have to come up with a complete one from the beginning, but at least you must have some background. At least you must have some preliminary research question. As I said, it's a live document. It keeps on evolving, right? So protocol development is often an iterative process, and it should be peer-reviewed. Let me show you one example of protocol. So this is one example. I made it as a PDF file here. When I did a system review of pair programming. Okay, so it has some contents. Okay, background, research question. Initially, as I started the SRR, I have no idea, of course, but I have some ideas in terms of the topic, right? So we can write a little bit of background about this topic, so you can tell what sort of studies that have been there that you have read upon, and then you have some preliminary questions. You see. So initially, it's okay to come up with a few questions. That is fine, and later we will refine it as we move on. Okay, bear in mind that we will never able to actually come up with a complete set of protocol, because we don't know how the synthesis is gonna looks like. But at least we have some ideas. Okay, in terms of where we wanted to search for the studies. Okay, let me continue. Alright. So these are some of the SRR guidelines and books. Okay, so mostly the main references used are the technical report by Kitchener and Charters, and there is also a book on this systematic review, and few examples of published studies that we can read. Okay, yeah, I think that is all.